Hi, everyone. Nick Corbett here with Masharia. We're going to have another conversation today around blockchain. So good early afternoon, Masharia. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Nick. Good afternoon.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for being here. And I believe our topic for today is DeFi, right?
DeFi, decentralized finance. Yes.
Now, you gave me a homework assignment, and I did my homework assignment. So I read this document we have here, and it looks like we have five components of DeFi. Um, let's want to just jump in there, and you take it, and I'll kind of ask questions as we go along.
Yes, DeFi is a very interesting project, which is built on blockchain. Actually, to start from the beginning, the first blockchain project by Satoshi Nakamoto, which built Bitcoin, made DeFi possible. So DeFi, Bitcoin is the first DeFi, let's say. But then after that, we had so much innovation with the advent of Ethereum, and then so many other blockchains that came much later. And so we have five categories of DeFi, or we could call them five pillars of DeFi. I think the leading of all of them is lending and borrowing in DeFi. Pillar number one, lending and borrowing. Then pillar number two, we have stable coins. And pillar number three, we have got derivatives. And then we have more sophisticated stuff like margin trading, and the final one, which I'm forgetting. Yeah. So I'm forgetting the final one, but I think we are going to remember as we come along.
I think you got them all. I have them here with margin trading, derivatives, decentralized exchanges, lending and borrowing, stablecoins.
Yeah, decentralized exchanges. Now that's what I'm forgetting, but how can I forget that? Decentralized exchanges. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So they're the five pillars, but I really feel like they're I don't know. If I visualize a pillar, I imagine like a big pavilion, a big tent, and these pillars are holding up the tent. But I
Yeah.
feel like DeFi is much more of a interconnected, woven ecosystem. So how do these pillars relate to DeFi? Is it they are directly kind of supporting it? They interoperate with one another? What's the best way for someone to begin thinking about these five pillars?
I think you could say that DeFi is the overarching philosophy, decentralized finance, which now is a complete overthrow of the centralized finance, like we've talked a few webinars ago. Centralized finance, which is the previous financial system, where we needed a trusted third party, like the banking organization, who are like the middle people, where we have to take money to them, and those people were acting as the trustees of our money. So in decentralized finance, we don't have individuals or human beings providing trust for the money. Trust comes from the blockchain protocol itself. So the blockchain becomes the provider of trust. And so we don't have people, we don't have individuals, we don't have organizations provide, and that's why it's decentralized finance. So from the centralized finance, where everybody has to go through a banking system, and everybody knows we have central banks in every country. The word central bank is a financial system is centralized.
Okay.
Yeah, and now central bank rules all the other banks, the commercial banks in a country, in a very centralized financial model. In
Understood.
decentralized finance, there is no one person, a central organization like a central bank that is ruling the finance money or the finance system. The the trust comes from the blockchain itself. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Very good.
individuals anywhere can actually participate in the DeFi without asking for permission from a central bank or commercial bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now these pillars that we've outlined here, margin trading, derivatives, decentralized exchanges, stable coins. These also, I feel like those all fall under the umbrella of lending and borrowing. Is that correct?
Yeah, mainly lending and borrowing. There's lending and borrowing, and there is also trading. You see, because exchange is about trading. Lending and borrowing is one of the functions that our banks, commercial banks, do. That we are not able to lend and borrow money without going through a commercial bank today, unless we're doing, social trading, social lending in the villages. But now with DeFi, we do not need to go to a bank. We can actually borrow money from someone else on a network, on a protocol, without having to go to the bank. That's what it means. But that's not the only thing. In trading, exchanges, like we have, the second pillar is exchanges, decentralized exchanges, like Uniswap, SushiSwap, and the like. There are two types of exchanges. Some of them have got order books, that is the old types of exchanges. And then the new exchanges like Uniswap and SushiSwap have got liquidity pools where anyone in the world can participate in creating a pool of money, or let's say tokens, and then anyone else can actually borrow from those tokens in exchanging, or maybe buy those tokens in a process known as swapping. Like Uniswap is the leading exchange for swapping coins, swapping exchanges. So in exchanging tokens in a decentralized fashion, first of all, we need to have liquidity pools or market making by liquidity pools, and these liquidity pools are totally decentralized, that anyone in the world, not just the rich people or people with deep pockets, anyone in the world can participate in creating a liquidity pool. And then it means that anyone can go there and swap their tokens in a liquidity pool, which is now very, very powerful. Yeah.
You said there's two kinds of decentralized exchanges. There's the liquidity pool and there's the order book. What exactly is an order book?
Order book, you see, in a traditional exchanges, in the centralized markets, like long time ago, so you could say like the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or Nairobi Stock Exchange, you had people placing orders, whether they're sell orders or buy orders, and then they would wait for someone to buy. In the meantime, if they're waiting for someone to buy, so of course, what the exchange does is to maintain an order book, so that now when you go online, you can see, or you can see what orders are there, whether they are buying orders or sell orders. That's known as an order book. And in that system, we had some deep pocket individuals who would become market makers. They can guarantee they're going to buy those orders so that the market doesn't crash. Okay. And so order books were maintained by market makers. And these market makers are centralized individuals. Most of them are investment banks or even some rich private individuals who would come and underwrite the orders. In decentralized exchanges, there's no order book. We have automatic market makers, automatic market making. Markets are made automatically from the liquidity pools, and that is the beauty of it. Market is automatic. It's because we have participation of almost everyone in the world. Anyone in the world can participate in creating a pool. Then when they create a pool, the pool is governed by an algorithm, like in Uniswap. So the algorithm determines the value of the coins that are in that pool.
Understood. So an order book is strictly tied to the practices of legacy financial systems. There are no order books within the decentralized crypto space.
In the decentralized, we have decentralized DeFi, we would say decentralized exchanges that had order books, and those ones actually penalized by the government sometimes. We had something like Ether Delta had an order book, DDX or DDEX had an order book, and those decentralized exchanges with order book are progressively being phased out because they contradict the regulatory procedures from the Security and Exchange Commission.
Okay, yeah. Understood. One quick final question here. With this liquidity pool, let's say that a bunch of people throw money into it around the globe, and then someone wants to borrow money from it. I imagine there's an interest rate to that borrowing. How is that interest rate determined? I know with the government, it's usually the central bank who sets the interest rates that impacts lending. But what is the algorithm? What's the smart contract doing to set these interest rates? And could they skyrocket? Or can you lock in an interest rate in a liquidity pool, or must it always be variable?
Well, you can lock it, and I think this is the beauty of it in the decentralized exchanges, that you can actually lock your interest so that it doesn't actually skyrocket. And of course, that that has been, led by Uniswap. Uniswap has very advanced procedure for locking in a certain rate that if the rate goes up to above this much, you don't want to participate. Yeah. Or if it's below this, then you can borrow. But as you said, that in the centralized exchanges, the interest rate is actually defined by the Federal Reserve Bank, which now decrease the interest. But here we have in decentralized exchanges, the fluctuation of the interest rate depending on the demand of the coins that you're borrowing. But then you can actually lock your own interest, the one you want, in a certain range. And if it is within there, the loan is going to get through. If it is above that, it doesn't get through. And that's the beauty of it, that there's a lot of independence in decentralization. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's a lot of the same thing. Now, I know someone who wants to borrow, they might not feel comfortable borrowing this new coin that's been around for only a couple of years. So is that where now another pillar, stable coins, come in? What is the role of, I know stable coins, they can be pegged to something, they can hold an underlying asset, like the US dollar. But is another role that they're playing is to just be more familiar to people, like USD, that it's people see that and think US dollar, okay, I know what that is, so it's not as frightening, it's not as foreign. What do you think the thinking is behind stable coins and their function?
I think you're right in your thinking, because stablecoin was the pegged stable coins was a kind of a second thought, because the initial stable coins were based on algorithm. They were not actually pegged to a currency. And I think later on, things like USDC were formed. But the initial stable coins were algorithmic stable coins. That means that they are pegged on the algorithm itself, like the DAI, the market DAI, the DAI coin, and it became very popular. That's why in 2015, 2018, 2019, 2017, 2015, 2016, 20, and became very, very popular. But they had to hedge the coin with other coins, another coin. And so I think some people thought that was not trustworthy enough. So it's better to peg a crypto with the price of the dollar. And so they made USDT. So we have pegged stable coins and then algorithmic stable coins. That's what they're doing. Yeah. But I personally, I don't see, I think it's just the anxiety for, the people are used to traditional currencies. So they would like to see something pegged to their own local currency, instead of saying that it is pegged by an algorithm, stabilized by an algorithm. But I think in the future, we're not going to see that type of problem, because people are going to get used to it, that you can have a stable coin that is totally algorithmic. Because I believe DAI has been very, very successful, and it's been there since for many years, but no, it's not as old as the dollar. You see, the dollar has been there for hundreds of years. DAI has only been there for maybe 5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think it's all very neat, stable coins. So let's try and tie something else. So we have our other topics here. We have margin trading, we have derivatives. Which of those do you feel it logically follows best right now?
I think derivatives are very, very beautiful, because we have company like synthetics. Anyone can build a derivative of the coins they're holding. I think on the synthetic platform, the synthetics. These derivatives, as we discussed previously, derivatives are synthetic products. They don't represent the actual asset. They derive their value from an asset, but they are not the asset itself. And so I think it's very, very powerful, particularly in maybe what's going to happen in the African continent, where most of the assets are not represented in the market. And we don't even have derivatives market in the African continent, because
you can get that proof of ownership in order to do it. Is that correct?
There's no proof of ownership. That's correct.
Okay, cool.
There are no property laws that are fastidious, that makes things happen. Like we have title deeds, and things like that. So it has been very, very difficult to create a derivatives market until
Okay,
now.
cool.
When the blockchain comes, then it becomes possible to create derivatives on the blockchain in the African market without now going through this, property system that has been very, very well established in the West since hundreds of years now. And that's really powerful, because when property becomes fixed in a certain way, which now can get fixed on the derivatives market, then what it does is to bring to life a lot of dead capital that is on the ground, that is in Africa today. Africa is not poor. Is poverty in Africa means, technically it means that the wealth in African continent is unrepresented in the market.
Yes.
That lack of representation now gets changed completely by the decentralized market, or DeFi, particularly in the synthetics, in the derivatives market. Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of seems like a derivative is a way to leapfrog financial advancement. So if Africa can represent all of its assets on the blockchain, then that proves that it has assets, and then that will encourage investment, which will allow them to realize the output of their existing assets. Does that sound kind of right?
That is right, because right now, if you look at Africa in terms of the financial market, it's blank. It's a blank space. It's like a place that has no representation whatsoever. So it looks like it is assetless. And that is not because it is assetless, it's because the assets that are there are unrepresented in the market. When the assets are not represented in the market, that translates into poverty on the individual level. So people are very, very poor because they cannot represent whatever they own, or whatever value they create in the market. And that's the blockchain is very powerful in that. Of course, derivatives markets, I love it completely. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's introduce margin trading into this conversation. So let's say right now, or I'm just going to say a few things. You tell me if I'm completely wrong here.
Yeah.
Let's say that margin trading is much like options, right? Where you it's leverage trading, so you can bet a certain amount and either lose much more than you initially invested, or you could really gain like very many multiples of what you initially invested. Is there any way for Africa to become represented on the blockchain, to use derivatives to generate value based upon that value, and then to use margins to achieve an exponential return on their newly represented assets? Is there any way for them to leapfrog into financial well-being?
Oh yes, absolutely. And you see, margin trading means that you go to you borrow some money, and then you promise that I'll pay. If it goes down, I'll pay back with extra, If it goes up, I will take the profit. And so when the margin goes down, then you get a margin call. That's what used to happen. You used to get a margin call, and your investment gets taken away by the broker or something like that. There was always a middle person, because you would have the broker holding your cash, such that if, say, for example, the asset you're buying drops down, then you get a margin call from the broker so that they can recover the money. But if it goes up, they actually give you the profit. That's, for example, if you say that your margin, you want to trade up to $100, if the price of the asset goes to $80, then you end up losing the money that you had put there. So you actually had to put some money up front that would be trading in that margin, or either borrow the money from a lender. Now, this was totally unavailable in the African market, or let's say people in the third world. They didn't have access to that kind of trading. And the beauty of the blockchain, it makes that possible for anyone, anywhere in the world, to participate in margin trading, particularly in decentralized exchanges. And that is really what is very powerful. And that means, as you said, it's going to leapfrog the entire financial market in a way that has been unprecedented. Yeah.
Do you see? I mean, here in the United States, I think of Visa, MasterCard. Are these names going to get into the DeFi space and be represented there? Or do you think that these names are going to become relics of the past while DeFi takes over?
Like every technology, when new things come, like a new innovation happens, the older, which is called the incumbent technology, tends to get wiped out.
Mhm.
It takes time. Yeah. In order for This is what's known as disruptive innovation. In order for an innovation to be disruptive, it has to be at least 10 times better than the existing innovation. So for the blockchain to displace to displace Visa or MasterCard, it has to become 10 times better than Visa or MasterCard, you know. And I see that is quite possible even within the next 10 years. Now, it doesn't mean that Visa and MasterCard has to go, or these traditional systems have to go away. What it means is that they have to innovate and catch up and get caught up with the blockchain. But usually that process is very, very difficult for incumbents, as we have seen in studies in many, many companies that have been incumbent in a certain technology. When new technology comes, they become unable to innovate. Say like Kodak. When digital photography came, Kodak could not innovate into digital technology and ends up getting wiped out. And same thing with music. Traditional records company, when iTunes came, traditional records company were totally wiped out. Maybe some of them survived. So it's quite possible that this traditional financial system, or payment gateways may not survive another decade or so. But I'm not the prophet of doom. I believe that they have the capacity to innovate if they can. But what we have seen in reality in life over centuries, that the incumbents, because they have invested so much money and they are so focused in what they're doing, they become unable to make the leap to the next level. And that process was described by Schumpeter late in 1940. He was an economist. He called it creative destruction. Such companies get destroyed creatively. That is what we call creative destruction in economic speak, innovation speak here.
Yeah. When we see a headline in the news saying like MasterCard is implementing blockchain technology, does that mean that blockchain technology is being implemented in a proprietary kind of closed loop way under the MasterCard umbrella? Or does that mean that MasterCard is becoming more transparent and is becoming part of the DeFi space?
You see, there are two types of blockchain, which is the open ledger and closed ledger. Closed ledger is private ledger. Open ledger is like Bitcoin, which is available for everybody. So even if they implement a MasterCard, if you say a private company implements a closed ledger, it doesn't mean that their system is open. It still, it still has that trusted third party, the trusted third party who is now the private company. And that is really unfortunate. It's again is the philosophy, the basic philosophy of the blockchain. Why Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin? Satoshi did not create Bitcoin so we can have it owned by a private organization. And so it is a private closed blockchain. It is decentralized within the organization, but it is not actually decentralized because it is still controlled by one person.
Understood.
An individual organization. So what is good is going to improve their processes. And this is why incumbent companies throughout, this creative destruction idea came because people, when they are used to being in a certain way, they are unable to see how they can actually change. Change is very, very difficult. And you can see now, instead of embracing open ledger itself, private companies are creating closed ledgers, private ledgers, and then claiming that they're actually on the blockchain. So the term blockchain does not really mean that they're actually open ledger. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And are you in touch with any of the conversations going on in Africa, like what are the camps? There are people, I imagine many people are in favor of open ledger. Is this a opinion that's held, do you think, widely? Do you think most people know enough to know the difference and to advocate for open ledger to be what prevails? Or do you think it'll just naturally prevail?
In Africa, it will naturally prefer the open ledger.
Mhm.
And this is the reason. Most people, majority of the people have been unbanked. They're bankless. Let's say have not been participating in the financial institutions. They actually do what just traditional changing money directly to one another. And so they have been excluded by the banking system. And of course, the World Bank defines those people as unbanked. And those people are indifferent to the idea that somebody can create a closed ledger, private ledger, and claim that's good, because they are going to access the open ledger directly. Because the open ledger, so long as you have a cell phone, a smartphone, you have access to the open ledger. But you see, people who are making closed ledgers or the private ledgers are making so many rules that in order for you to participate, you have to do XYZ. Open ledger does not come with such rules. It doesn't have, it's permissionless. See? So right now, it's not even people think about it, it's just automatically there, that you don't have to tell them, okay, is this private company doing this and that? They don't really need to know. They are not even interested. So long as you have a phone and you can download an app, a decentralized application, adapt, like Uniswap, you will participate in Uniswap. But say a private company comes with requirement for you to do this and that, then it's to get approved in there. It's not going to work. So we have a huge population, very large population, masses of people who are unbanked, and that is the main market for this open ledger.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing, even from the conversation, say that you see many government institutions advocating for private ledgers, and of course centralization of the system. Even many African countries are proposing.
Now, these are CBDCs, right? CBDCs would be central bank digital currency.
Yeah, central bank digital currency is also, in a closed, the private ledger owned by the central bank, and it really does nothing to the blockchain spirit. It's not. It's really not a decentralized system, because it's too centralized. It's a central bank ledger, so central bank currency. It's just what they're saying. They're just digitizing the original legal tender to bring it on the internet. It actually has really, it's no difference from the traditional legal tender.
I know.
I don't see it becoming successful, even no matter how hard they try to force it.
I know we're near the end of our time here, but I want to give you one last thing. I want to see your thoughts on this. If we can kind of draw a compare and contrast, or from, let's say, globalization, right? Let's say a decade ago, I feel like all I ever heard was globalization is happening and it's inevitable. And then, a few years ago, we saw a huge reversion to, nationalism, anti-globalist kind of rhetoric. But then also with Bitcoin and everything, we hear a lot of talk around decentralization, which also seems to go hand in hand with globalization. But now we're seeing this reversion by states to try and implement their own, closed ledgers, which is almost like the same to the reversion back to the nationalist, the closed, the control, the government led institutions. So do you see a pairing there that makes sense to you?
Yeah, I think, and I would address the idea of globalization. What globalization was maybe in the 1990s, 1980s, that was about, say, American companies trying to sell their products to everybody else in the world. And they call that globalization. Now, everybody else in the world does not manufacture anything to sell to everyone else. It's just the Western companies selling their product. They say, like Coca-Cola, trying to distribute its Coca-Cola products to the villages in Africa and also to China and everywhere. So that idea of making American products, or you call distribution, that's what distribution issue of products made in the United States so that it can reach everyone else in the world. That was the initial state of globalization. But then when that happened, something else occurred that you could call a reverse of globalization, that people in other countries started manufacturing things that now they were selling to the United States. And so that became something that happened too much in the 2000s and 2010s. And now we're having independent places manufacturing their own good for their own population. And that is what you call true type globalization, when globalization became decentralized. So we got decentralization of manufacturing. Right now you have people in India manufacturing a lot of the computer products, software coming out of India, Taiwan making microchips, semiconductor industry, even in China, semiconductor industry in Israel, and stuff like that. So you can see now these semiconductor industries in multiple countries is that these people are able to manufacture their own products. But then what has not actually entered in that sphere is currency, finance, money. That money is still centralized. It comes from the International Monetary Fund dictating the value of currency in different countries. So this thing is issuing all the way from the United States through the International Monetary Fund, through the central banks, and then to African villages. And in many, many countries like that. So decentralized, this is the last step in globalization, and the globalization plus decentralization, which now decentralizes the finances, just like the way manufacturing was decentralized almost completely in the 2000s and then 2010s. Yeah. So we had decentralization manufacturing. Right now, you can see that even a lot of computer products come from, Eastern Bloc, maybe China, Taiwan, Israel. But what is other products that we have not seen being decentralized? Manufacture of medicine, biomedical manufacturing and translation of knowledge in science of medicine and pharmaceuticals. And that, I think, will be the next step, particularly when it comes to decentralization of finance. And this is our Eureka project, is to see how we can decentralize production of biomedical products in different countries in this world. That is Eureka project per se.
Yes, perfect. Cool. It is 12:49 here in the Eastern time, so I think we'll wrap it up there, and we can you and I will touch base, but I think we can dig deeper into some of these pillars moving forward. And thank you, Mashria, for another conversation.
Thank you so much, Nico. But we log out now and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. You too.